Heejin walked through the giant glass building on Velnar Prime. Her shoes made soft clicking sounds on the strange floor that glowed with alien light. She was Earth's representative at the Galactic Trade Consortium, which meant she had to smile and look interested even when she was not. Today she was visiting the metallurgy exhibition. Aliens from many different worlds were showing off their best metalwork. There were swords, shields, and tools made from materials Heejin had never seen before. Each alien creator claimed their metal was the strongest, the sharpest, the best in the entire galaxy. Heejin had seen many of these exhibitions before. They were usually boring. Earth's technology was simpler than most alien civilizations, so everyone expected her to be amazed by everything. But Heejin's grandfather had been a bladesmith. Her uncle still made knives and swords in his workshop. She knew good metal work when she saw it. Here, called Vornum, the trade ambassador from Calrath. He had 4 arms and was very excited. This is what I wanted to show you. In front of them was a glass case with a single sword inside. The metal was dark and seemed to pull light into itself. The edge looked so sharp that Heejin thought it might cut through air. Strange alien letters glowed blue along the blade. This blade was made by Forgemaster Thane of House Korvax, Vornum said proudly. His voice came through a translator that made him sound smooth and professional. The metal comes from collapsed neutron star fragments. It was folded 300 times under massive gravity pressure. Nothing can break it. No blade in the galaxy can match it. Heejin looked at the sword more carefully. She had to admit it was beautiful. The craftsmanship was excellent. It is very nice, she said politely. Nice? Vornum's mouth parts clicked together. Young envoy, this blade could cut through your spaceship like paper. Forgemaster Thane has challenged everyone at this exhibition. He says if anyone can bring him a metal this blade cannot cut, or a blade that can match it, he will give them a 50 million credit trade contract. Many have tried. Everyone has failed. Vornum pointed to a wall covered with broken pieces of metal. See? Those are all the materials that have been tested, all destroyed with a single cut. Heejin reached into her jacket and pulled out a thin black case. Can I try? Vornum's 6 eyes went wide. You brought something? We sent the challenge rules months ago. I read them. Heejin opened the case carefully. Inside was a knife. It was not fancy or impressive looking. It had a wooden handle held together with brass pins. The blade had a strange wavy pattern of light and dark metal flowing through it like frozen water. Vornum stared at it. Other aliens started gathering around them, looking at the simple human knife. Their various eyes and sensors focused on it. This is your entry? Vornum's translator seemed confused by his tone. It looks like something for cutting food. My uncle made it, Heejin said calmly. Last Sunday, actually. He was testing a new cooling technique. The crowd began murmuring. Heejin's translator caught words like primitive and does not understand and embarrassing for Earth. Very well. Vornum pressed something and the glass case slid open. We will summon Forgemaster Thane, but I must warn you, Envoy Park, this challenge is serious. If you fail, it will be embarrassing for your entire world. Heejin kept smiling. Then we better not fail. The crowd grew larger. Aliens of many species pressed forward to see what would happen. Some were taking recordings. Others were placing bets using their communication devices. Heejin stood calmly, holding her uncle's simple kitchen knife. After a few minutes, the crowd parted. Forgemaster Thane arrived. He was huge, at least 3 meters tall. His body was covered in a hard shell that showed scorch marks from years of working with hot metal. He had 6 arms, each ending in delicate tool-like hands. His people, the Korvathi, had been expert metalworkers for thousands of years, long before humans even knew how to make iron. This is the challenger? His voice was deep and did not need a translator. The Korvathi language was known by everyone who worked with metal. Envoy Park Heejin from Earth, Vornum introduced her. Thane's compound eyes looked at Heejin, then down at the knife in her hands. He was quiet for a long moment. Then his mouth part spread in what might have been a smile. Damascus steel, he said softly. Everyone stopped talking. Heejin's eyebrows lifted in surprise. You know what it is? I know of it. Thane moved closer. Despite his size, he moved carefully like someone who worked with delicate things. Earth, Sol 3. Your world's metalworking records were some of the first things I studied when your people joined the consortium. You lost the technique for making true Damascus steel in your 18th century. The method died with the masters who knew it. Not all of them. Heejin held out the knife handle first. My uncle has a workshop in Gyeongju. He spent 30 years researching the old methods, testing different approaches, studying old blade fragments,
Analyzing their chemical makeup.
He figured it out about 5 years ago. Thane took the knife gently, holding it up to the light. The wave pattern in the steel seemed to move and shift as he turned it. This was the signature of real Damascus steel. Not fake patterns that were only on the surface, but genuine layers of different types of steel forged together. The pattern goes all the way through the blade? He asked. From edge to spine, tip to handle. The carbon levels? Different in each layer, between 0.5 and 1.5%. That creates layers with different hardness. Some hold a sharp edge, others stay flexible. What temperature did he forge it at? 1200 degrees Celsius. Cooled in oil, then tempered with clay. Thane's breathing holes flared. This was made on your homeworld? Not in a quantum forge? Not with molecular assemblers?
In a workshop behind my uncle's house.
The forge runs on propane gas. The hammer is powered by his arm and shoulder. A wave of shocked whispers moved through the crowd. Heejin heard her translator picking up phrases. Impossible with primitive tools. Cannot achieve that precision manually. Pre-industrial methods. Thane walked to the testing station. There was a block of certified standard alloy there, used across the galaxy for testing metal. Without ceremony, he raised his legendary neutron star blade and brought it down on the block. The alloy split cleanly in half. Both pieces fell to the floor with a clang. Then Thane picked up Heejin's uncle's knife. He raised it and brought it down on another test block with the same motion. The alloy split just as cleanly. The exhibition hall went completely silent. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species stared at the simple kitchen knife that had just matched the greatest blade in the known galaxy. Envoy Park, Thane said slowly, carefully. I must conduct proper tests. Hardness measurements. Tensile strength. Edge retention, flexibility. Would you allow me to keep this blade for analysis? I brought 3 more. Heejin pulled another case from her bag. Uncle Minho thought you might want to destroy one for testing. He included his process notes translated into galactic standard. Also his address if you want to visit his workshop. Thane's hand manipulators trembled slightly as he took the second case. Your uncle makes these on weekends? And weekday evenings when he has time. He is a mathematics teacher during the day. The metalworking is just his hobby. A hobby? Thane's translator gave up trying to convey his emotional state. The words came out flat and emotionless. Envoy Park, do you understand what you have brought me? A knife? No. The Forgemaster turned to address the entire crowd. His voice carried across the hall. She has brought proof that humanity maintained metalworking techniques from before they had spaceflight. Techniques that we, the Korvathi, the so-called masters of the forge, dismissed as legends. We thought your old writings exaggerated Damascus steel's properties. We assumed that when you lost the technique, it proved it was never as good as your histories claimed. He held up both blades, his masterwork and the simple knife. My blade required 6,000 years of accumulated knowledge. Materials harvested from dead stars, forging processes that manipulate gravity itself. This blade required charcoal, iron, patience, and skill passed from teacher to student across generations. And they are equals. The implications of his words spread through the crowd like ripples in water. Earth, the young species, the civilization with simple technology, had just proven that ancient techniques could match the galaxy's most advanced science. Heejin kept her diplomatic smile in place. But inside she was thinking about her uncle's workshop. The old corrugated metal building. The propane forge. The oil-stained anvil. Uncle Minho in his work apron, carefully heating and hammering metal while he hummed old songs. He was going to be very surprised when she told him about this. 3 weeks later, Minho looked up from his grinding wheel. He turned off the machine and removed his safety glasses. His small workshop was suddenly full of aliens. Hyejin? He called to his niece, who stood in the doorway looking embarrassed. Did you bring friends? Behind Heejin stood the massive form of Forgemaster Thane. With him were at least a dozen other aliens of various species. They filled the small workshop entrance, their various sensors and eyes looking at everything. Uncle, I am so sorry, Heejin said quickly. They insisted on coming. Thane wanted to see where you made the knives. The forge, Thane said, moving forward carefully. His 6 eyes took in every detail of the workshop. Envoy Park, the younger one, told us that the technique for creating those blades could be observed here. Minho looked down at his oil-stained work clothes. You came all the way to Gyeongju to watch me make knives? We came to witness mastery, Thane said simply. The workshop was not impressive. It was 20 meters by 15 meters, with a concrete floor and walls made of corrugated metal sheets. The forge was a propane-powered unit that Minho had modified himself over the years. Hammers and tongs hung on the walls. An old power hammer sat in one corner. It had been third-hand when Minho bought it 20 years ago. The cooling tanks were old oil drums that he had cut in half. To the gathered alien delegation, with their technology that could manipulate individual atoms, the workshop must have looked like something from a museum. Or a joke. This is where you made the Damascus blade, Asta being made of crystal formations. Minho could not pronounce its name. And about 40 others this year, Minho said. He walked to his workbench where several blades in different stages of completion were laid out. I have been filling orders for a cooking supply company in Seoul. Chefs like Damascus steel for kitchen knives. It holds an edge well and looks nice. Cooking supply, Thane repeated slowly. You sell these blades for preparing food. Mostly, yes. Some go to collectors. I made a sword last month for a customer in Germany, but that was unusual. Minho began laying out steel bars on his workbench. Did Hyejin explain how the process works? She provided your notes, Thane said. But notes are not the same as understanding. I wish to observe the process directly. If you permit? Minho shrugged. You came all this way. You might as well watch. But it takes time. The folding alone will take most of the day. We have time, Thane assured him. What followed was perhaps the strangest day of Minho's life. He walked the delegation through each step of his process, explaining in his teacher's voice. Patient, clear, expecting questions. He showed them how he selected steel. You need high-carbon steel and low-carbon steel. They must be compatible. The old smiths probably used wood steel from India, but we cannot get that exact composition anymore. I use modern steel that gives similar results. He demonstrated forge welding. He heated the steel bars until they reached the right temperature. Then he hammered them together under the power hammer's rhythmic strikes. Sparks flew. The forge roared. His movements had the unconscious precision of 30 years of practice. The temperature must be exact, he explained, pulling the hot steel from the forge with his tongs. Too cold and the layers will not bond together. Too hot and you burn the metal. You learn to read the color. He showed them the glowing steel. That orange-yellow color? That is correct. That is where iron wants to join together. Thane's translator struggled with that last phrase, then gave up. The Korvathi made a sound like grinding stones. Iron wants to join, he repeated, trying to speak Korean. Yes, I understand. Metal has preferences. The folding process took hours. Minho would heat the steel, hammer it flat, fold it over, and weld it together. Then he would cut the steel billet and do it all again. Each fold doubled the number of layers. After 9 folds, the single billet contained over 500 layers of alternating high and low carbon steel. How do you know when it is ready? Asked a Velrathi observer. Its sensor array was fully extended, recording everything. Experience, Minho said. Also this. He pointed to a small scratch on the steel's surface. Under magnification, it revealed the wave pattern beginning to form. The layers are thin enough now. More folding would just make the steel too uniform. You want distinct layers with different properties. Next came the shaping. Minho worked the hot steel on his anvil, drawing it out into a blade shape with controlled hammer blows. The power hammer helped with the heavy work, but the precision came from his arm and eye. He showed them how he created the tang, the part that would go into the handle. He forged the bevels, the angled surfaces leading to the edge. He established the edge geometry. Your technique is remarkably consistent, Thane observed. His sensors were recording every hammer strike. The variation between blows is less than 0.03%. Good to know my arm has not gotten tired yet, Minho said with a slight smile. The heat treating was where the real magic happened. Minho explained differential hardening as he applied wet clay to the blade's spine, leaving the edge bare. The clay insulates the steel. When I plunge the hot steel into oil, the edge cools very fast. It becomes very hard. The spine cools slower because of the clay. It stays more flexible. So you get a hard edge that can be sharpened very much, and a flexible spine that will not snap under stress. Best of both properties in one blade. He heated the blade until it glowed the right color. Then he plunged it into the oil tank. The tank erupted in flames for a moment, then died down as the steel cooled and hardened. When Minho pulled the blade out, it was dark. It had curved slightly from the different cooling rates. The wave pattern was now clearly visible along its length. Damascus, Thane breathed. True Damascus steel. Created with methods your species developed before you had written language. Well, this specific process is only about 1,000 years old. Minho corrected him. But yes, the basic ideas go back further. My ancestors were making steel like this when yours were... He paused, realizing he had no idea what the Korvathi were doing thousands of years ago. Still using bronze, Thane finished for him. We discovered iron late. Our planet has very little iron ore. When we finally developed steelworking, we jumped directly to advanced alloys. We never had a reason to perfect simple carbon steel. We thought we had surpassed it entirely. Different paths, Minho said, carefully filing the blade to refine its shape. You went wide, exploring many different materials. We went deep, perfecting a few materials. Both approaches are useful. The alien delegation stayed all day. They watched Minho complete the blade, fit it with a simple wooden handle, and sharpen it to a razor edge. They asked hundreds of questions. Thane took extensive notes and recordings. As the sun began to set, the delegation prepared to leave. Thane approached Minho and performed a gesture that seemed to be a bow, despite his body's very different structure. Master Minho, I have learned more today than in years of advanced study. Would you consider taking on an apprentice? A long-term student? Minho looked at the massive alien Forgemaster. You want to learn bladesmithing here? I want to understand what my people forgot, Thane said. We were so focused on advancing to new techniques that we never mastered the old ones. You have knowledge that goes back thousands of years, maintained in an unbroken line from master to student. I have 3 generations of metallurgical memory, perhaps 4. You have hundreds. Minho thought about this. He looked around his small, cluttered workshop. He thought about his teaching job at the middle school. He thought about his weekends, usually spent alone with his forge and his thoughts. You would have to do all the basic work, Minho said finally. Clean the forge. Prepare the steel. Learn the fundamentals before moving to Damascus. It would take years. I have years, Thane said. And you would have to adapt to my schedule. I teach during the week. Forge work happens on weekends and evenings. I can adapt. Minho nodded slowly. Then yes, you can be my apprentice. We start next Saturday, 8 in the morning. Do not be late. As the delegation left, Hyejin stayed behind with her uncle. They watched the alien ships lift off into the evening sky. Uncle, do you realize what you have just done? You have just agreed to teach the galaxy's most respected Forgemaster. I agreed to teach a student, Minho corrected her. He began putting away his tools, following the routine he had maintained for 30 years. That is what teachers do. The video recordings from Minho's workshop spread across the galactic network faster than anyone expected. Within days, millions of beings across hundreds of worlds had watched a human teacher forge Damascus steel using tools that predated spaceflight. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within a month, Earth became the center of an unexpected revolution in metallurgy. The consortium's Mastersmiths Guild sent a delegation. This was an organization so old and prestigious that even the Korvathi showed them deep respect. We need to understand, their leader said. His name was Kormath, an ancient Velrathi whose crystalline body showed the wear of centuries. How did a pre-spaceflight species maintain such advanced techniques? Dr. Ji-hoon, a metallurgical engineer from Seoul National University, took the question. He had been chosen to speak for Earth's scientific community. We did not think of them as advanced. We thought of them as traditional. Cultural heritage. We preserved them for the same reason we preserved old temple architecture and traditional music, because they connected us to our ancestors. But the knowledge required, Kormath's translator conveyed his confusion. The precision, the understanding of material properties, was never lost, Ji-hoon said. He pulled up a presentation on the holographic display. Look at Japan's katana tradition, China's jian swords, Indonesian keris blades, European longswords. Every human culture developed blade-making techniques suited to their materials and needs. Some techniques were lost, yes, but many were preserved by enthusiasts and historians. When modern analysis proved the old masters knew what they were doing, interest came back stronger. You are saying humans maintained ancient metallurgical knowledge as a hobby? Kormath's translation software seemed to struggle with the entire concept. Essentially, yes, Minho Park is one of maybe 2,000 Damascus steelsmiths on Earth. There are another 50,000 bladesmiths working in various traditions. Some are professionals. Most are hobbyists and artists. They maintain the techniques and keep the knowledge alive. Thane, who had stayed on Earth to study with Minho, added his own observation. The Korvathi approach was to always seek the next advancement. Old techniques were discarded as soon as better ones emerged. We have 3, maybe 4 generations of metallurgical memory. Humans have hundreds of generations. They carry knowledge in an unbroken chain across thousands of years. Subin, Earth's consortium ambassador, saw the opportunity immediately. Perhaps we could arrange cultural exchanges. Earth's traditional smiths could demonstrate their techniques, while your advanced metallurgists could share modern applications. What she expected to be a small academic program became a flood. Within 6 months, Earth was hosting 47 alien metallurgists. Each was assigned to a different human mastersmith. Traditional workshops from Korea to Germany to Syria found themselves teaching forge welding and heat treatment to species who could manipulate atomic structures with their thoughts. Minho found himself with 3 permanent apprentices. Thane was the first. Then came Shen, a young Velrathi whose crystalline body could actually sense molecular structures in the steel. Finally, there was Cross, a Trelawney engineer who had abandoned a prestigious corporate position to learn traditional forging. Today we work on pattern welding, Minho announced one Saturday morning. He laid out different steel alloys on his workbench. Thane, you will use the meteoritic iron. Shen, the nickel steel. Cross, standard high carbon. We will forge them together and see what patterns emerge. His workshop, once a solitary retreat, now hummed with activity. Galactic standard mixed with Korean, translated questions, and the universal language of hammer-striking steel. His nephew Hyejin stopped by during lunch, bringing food and her usual amusement at the situation. Uncle, you know you are teaching techniques to species that can create materials 1 atom at a time, right? Minho watched Thane carefully draw out a steel billet on the anvil. The massive Korvathi had good hammer control now after months of practice, and they are teaching me about crystalline structures and molecular bonding. Fair trade. The consortium is calling you the keeper of ancient fires. They should call me a teacher who needs a bigger workshop, Minho said. I am thinking of expanding, maybe hiring some help. Borum from the university wants to leave academic research and learn full-time forging. Hyejin laughed. Earth's first galactic-scale traditional smithing operation? Why not? Apparently there is demand. The real surprise came from an unexpected direction. Advanced materials companies across the galaxy began analyzing the properties of traditionally forged blades. Their engineers made a discovery that shocked the scientific community. Dr. Ji-hoon presented the findings to the consortium. Science Council 3 months after Minho's demonstration went viral. Traditional Damascus steel exhibits a hierarchical structure that our computer models did not predict, he explained, showing microscopic images of the steel's internal structure. The folding process creates not just layers, but a microstructure of carbon nanotubes and cementite nanowires within the steel matrix. The ancient smiths could not see this structure. They did not have electron microscopes, but they could feel its effects through use. Incredible toughness combined with edge retention. He pulled up comparative analyses on the holographic display. When we synthesize steel atom by atom, we create perfectly uniform structures. Strong, yes. Predictable, absolutely. But they lack the structural complexity of forged steel. The imperfections, the slight variations, the hierarchical layering. These create emergent properties that our perfect synthetic materials do not have. You are suggesting, a Korvathi engineer said slowly, that primitive techniques produce superior results? I am saying different techniques produce different results, each with advantages, Ji-hoon clarified. Synthesized materials are perfect for applications requiring absolute consistency. But forged materials, especially traditionally forged materials, have properties that emerge from the creation process itself. Properties we are only beginning to understand. The implications rippled through galactic industry like a shockwave. Within a year, 17 major materials companies had established what they called traditional production divisions. They were not abandoning advanced synthesis. They were supplementing it. A Velrathi corporation called Crystal Forge Solutions opened a traditional smithing facility on Earth. They hired 30 human bladesmiths as consultants. A Trelawney manufacturing consortium purchased an entire valley in Norway to establish a forge complex using both traditional and advanced techniques. The Korvathi Metallurgical Institute, the most prestigious material science organization in the galaxy, revised their entire curriculum. Now every student had to complete at least 1 year of traditional forging before they could access quantum forge technology. Understanding the foundations, their announcement stated, is essential to true mastery. Minho watched all of this with a mixture of bemusement and satisfaction. His small workshop had become a pilgrimage site. Important engineers and scientists from across the galaxy requested permission to observe his work. He accepted some, turned away others. He maintained his teaching job at the middle school. He still forged on weekends and evenings. The work does not change because the audience changes, he told Thane one evening. They were working on a complex Sanmai blade, combining 3 different types of steel. Good steel requires patience. Rushing creates weakness. This is true whether you forge for yourself or for the galaxy. Thane, who was carefully controlling the forge temperature, made a sound of agreement. My people forgot this. We became so focused on speed and efficiency that we lost appreciation for the slow development of mastery. You are relearning, Minho said. He examined the steel's color, judged it ready, and nodded to Thane. That is what matters. Not where you were, but where you are going. As Thane pulled the glowing steel from the forge, Minho reflected on how strange his life had become. A year ago, he had been a simple teacher who made knives on weekends. Now he was apparently teaching the galaxy about patience, tradition, and the value of knowledge passed down through generations. But in the workshop, with the forge glowing and the hammer in his hand, everything was still the same. Steel was steel. Fire was fire. Good work was good work. The rest was just noise. 2 years after Yejin presented her uncle's knife at Velnar Prime, the relationship between traditional and advanced metallurgy had completely transformed. What began as curiosity had evolved into genuine collaboration. Thane had completed his apprenticeship with Minho. The massive Korvathi could now forge Damascus steel with a skill that would have been impressive for any human smith. But more importantly, he had gained something his people had lost: patience and respect for the slow accumulation of knowledge. Master Minho, Thane said one morning, I have a proposal. They were in the new workshop. Minho had finally expanded, purchasing the building next door and knocking down the connecting wall. Now he had space for 6 forges, proper ventilation, and a small classroom area. His apprentice, Borum, ran the educational programs while Minho focused on the actual forging. What kind of proposal? Minho asked. He was finishing a commission, a chef's knife for a restaurant in Tokyo. A collaboration between your traditional methods and my quantum forging techniques. Thane pulled out a holographic display. I want to create a blade that combines both approaches. Half forged in my quantum forge using neutron star matter. Half forged here using your Damascus steel techniques. Then we weld them together. Minho stopped his grinding work and looked at the display. That should be impossible. Neutron matter and carbon steel have completely different properties, different melting points, different crystalline structures. They should not be able to bond. By conventional understanding, no, Thane agreed. But I believe we can find a way. If we modify both materials to create a compatible bonding zone, use your forge welding techniques at the junction point, it would require perfect temperature control and precise timing. And if it works, we prove that traditional and advanced techniques can merge. Not one replacing the other, but both strengthening each other. Minho considered this. It was the kind of project that would have seemed insane a few years ago. Now, with everything he had learned from his alien apprentices, and everything they had learned from him, it might actually be possible. We try, he said finally. But we do it properly. No rushing. We test each step. The project took 6 months. Thane worked in his quantum forge, carefully synthesizing neutron star matter and modifying its properties to create what he called a transition zone. Minho forged Damascus steel with a matching transition zone, adjusting the carbon content and grain structure. They failed 17 times. The materials would not bond, or they would bond but crack under stress, or the junction point would become brittle. Perhaps it cannot be done, Thane said after the 17th failure. His translator conveyed frustration, an emotion Minho rarely heard from him. Perhaps we are approaching it wrong, Minho said. He examined the broken blade under a microscope. Look here. The neutron matter wants to maintain its quantum state. Our steel wants to maintain its crystalline structure. They are fighting each other. Yes, that is the problem. So we do not force them to change. We create a buffer, a third material that can speak to both. What third material? Minho smiled. I have an idea. Remember when Shen was teaching me about crystalline bonding? How crystal structures can serve as bridges between different material types. They spent another month developing the buffer material. It was a hybrid creation, partially synthesized using quantum techniques, partially forged using traditional methods. A material that could maintain quantum coherence on one side and crystalline structure on the other. The 18th attempt succeeded. When they pulled the completed blade from Minho's quench tank, both of them simply stared at it. The junction line was visible as a swirling pattern where neutron matter met Damascus steel. The blade should have been impossible, but it existed solid and whole in Minho's tongues. We need to test it, Thane said quietly. The test took weeks. They measured hardness, flexibility, edge retention, and impact resistance. They subjected the blade to stresses that would destroy normal materials. They tried to find its breaking point. The blade exceeded all expectations. The Damascus steel portion provided flexibility and edge retention. The neutron matter portion provided incredible strength and hardness. The buffer zone held perfectly, distributing stress across both materials. This is remarkable, Jihoon said when they presented the results to the scientific community. You have created a true hybrid material, not just mixing two substances, but creating a genuine synthesis where each component enhances the other. It is more than that, said Cormath, the ancient Velrathi who led the Master Smiths Guild. This blade represents a philosophical achievement. For thousands of years, we believed advancement meant abandoning old methods for new ones. This proves that true advancement means synthesis, building new understanding on top of old foundations. News of the collaborative blade spread quickly. Within weeks, research teams across the galaxy were exploring similar hybrid approaches. Traditional techniques from dozens of species were being combined with advanced technology. A Trelawney biologist combined traditional plant breeding techniques with genetic modification, creating crops that were more resilient than either approach alone could produce. A Velrathi architect merged ancient crystal-growing methods with modern structural engineering, creating buildings that were both beautiful and incredibly strong. You have started something, Hyejin told her uncle during one of her visits. The entire galaxy is rethinking how they approach progress. Minho was teaching a class of mixed human and alien students. They were learning basic forge welding, the foundation of all advanced techniques. We did not start anything, he said. We just reminded everyone that old knowledge and new knowledge are not enemies. They are partners. One of his human students, a young woman named Yunji, raised her hand. Master Minho, why did it take aliens coming to Earth for us to realize how valuable our traditional techniques were? Minho considered the question carefully. Because we were too close to it. We saw traditional methods every day, so we thought they were ordinary. Sometimes you need outside perspective to recognize value. The aliens saw our traditions with fresh eyes. They recognized what we had forgotten. That knowledge maintained across generations is precious, regardless of whether it uses the newest technology. Thane, who was assisting with the class, added his own thought. And we needed humans to remind us that advancement is not just about moving forward. It is also about remembering where you came from. My people were so focused on the future that we forgot to honor the past. You showed us that both are necessary. After class, Minho and Thane prepared for the next phase of their collaboration. The second grand technological exposition was approaching. They would display their hybrid blade there, demonstrating what was possible when different approaches worked together. Are you nervous? Thane asked as they packed the blade carefully. No, Minho said. The blade is good. The work is honest. That is all that matters. You have changed, Master Minho. When I first met you, you were content in your small workshop, unknown beyond your local community. Now you are known across the galaxy. Minho shook his head. I have not changed. I still forge the same way. I still teach the same methods. The audience is bigger, yes, but the work is the same. Good steel does not care who is watching. Thane made a sound that might have been laughter, spoken like a true master. As they finished packing, Minho looked around his expanded workshop. Students from 6 different species were practicing their hammer control. The forges glowed with work from 3 different worlds. The air smelled of hot metal and quenching oil. The same smells that had filled his grandfather's workshop decades ago. Different, yes, but also the same. That was the lesson, really. Change and tradition were not opposites. They were 2 sides of the same blade, strengthening each other through their differences. The second Grand Technological Exposition on Velnar Prime looked completely different from the first one 2 years earlier. The Metallurgy Pavilion still showcased quantum-forged alloys and molecularly assembled composites. But now, interspersed throughout the exhibition were traditional forges. A Velrathi smith demonstrated crystalline blade formation, using techniques adapted from human sword-making. A Trelawney master showed her pattern welding method that combined human Damascus techniques with her species' natural ability to sense molecular structures. A young Korvathi Forgemaster used ancient copper-working methods from Earth's Bronze Age combined with modern alloy science. In the center of it all, Forgemaster Thane and Master Smith Minho had their joint display. The hybrid blade rested in a clear case, suspended so visitors could see it from all angles. The junction line where neutron matter met Damascus steel created a mesmerizing pattern, like a frozen wave where 2 different oceans met. Beside it were detailed explanations in 17 languages, describing both the traditional and advanced techniques used in its creation. "It is beautiful," Hyejin said, standing beside her uncle and studying the blade. "It is functional," Minho corrected gently. He had never been comfortable with praise. Beauty is secondary. What matters is that it works. "It is both," Thane said, joining them. His galactic standard had improved dramatically during his time on Earth, picking up a Korean accent from his years with Minho. "Master Minho taught me that the best tools are honest. They do not pretend to be more than they are, but they are everything they should be." The exhibition opened to the public. Hyejin watched as beings from hundreds of species examined the collaborative blade. Some were metallurgists and engineers taking detailed scans and measurements. Others were artists and philosophers, interested in what the blade represented rather than its technical specifications. Vornum approached, his 4 arms performing a gesture of respect. "Envoy Park, I owe you an apology. When you presented that kitchen knife 2 years ago, I thought it was a naive gesture from a young species eager to participate." "And now?" Hyejin asked. "Now the galactic metallurgical standards have been completely revised. Traditional forging stress patterns are recognized as a legitimate structural enhancement. 3 new commercial alloys derived from Damascus steel principles are in production, and my daughter has apprenticed herself to a bladesmith on Earth. Much to my initial confusion, but growing pride. All because my uncle makes knives on weekends," Hyejin said with a smile. "All because your species preserved knowledge we had discarded," Vornum corrected. "The consortium is reassessing traditional technologies from every member species. The Velrathi are reviving their ancient ceramic methods. The Trelawney are returning to biological material synthesis they abandoned thousands of years ago. Humanity taught us an important lesson. Advancement means addition, not replacement." The exhibition hall filled with visitors. Hyejin listened to their conversations, her translator picking up dozens of languages. Everyone was discussing the implications of the hybrid blade. Not just the technical achievement, but what it meant philosophically. A young Korvathi student approached Thane with a question. "Master Thane, is it true you learned bladesmithing on Earth?" "I am still learning," Thane corrected gently. "Master Minho says I have perhaps 50 more years before I will truly understand steel." 50 years? The young Korvathi seemed shocked. "But you are Forgemaster of House Korvax. You have already mastered quantum forging." "I have mastered one approach to metallurgy," Thane explained patiently. "Master Minho offered me the chance to master another. Time is a small price for understanding." Minho, who had been quietly observing the crowd, added his own perspective in carefully practiced galactic standard. "Good steel cannot be rushed. Good smith cannot be rushed. This is true everywhere, I think." As the day continued, Minho found himself surrounded by young smiths and engineers asking questions. How did he maintain such precise temperature control with simple tools? How did he judge when the steel was ready for the next step? How did he know the blade was complete? "Experience," he answered repeatedly. "You learn by doing, by making mistakes, by understanding that each piece of steel is different and wants something different from you. You cannot learn this from books or computers. You must feel it." A Velrathi engineer pressed further. "But surely there must be measurable indicators." Temperature readings, timing protocols? Yes, Minho agreed. Those exist. But they are guides, not rules. The steel tells you what it needs. Sometimes the temperature is right, but the timing is wrong. Sometimes everything measures perfectly, but the steel is not ready. You have to listen. Listen to steel? The engineer seemed confused. Steel does not communicate. It does, Thane interjected. Not with words. With color, with sound, with the way it moves under the hammer. Master Minho taught me to hear these communications. It is like learning a new language. Once you understand it, you cannot imagine working without it. Later, as the exhibition began to wind down, Hyejin walked with her uncle through the pavilion. Around them, the galaxy's greatest metallurgists discussed techniques and methods, trading knowledge across species lines. Do you find it strange, Uncle, that the most advanced species in the galaxy came to you for lessons? Minho thought about this as they walked. Not strange, natural. My grandfather taught me that good steel is honest. It tells you what it needs. Bad steel lies, promises strength but breaks. I think civilizations are similar. The truly advanced ones are honest enough to admit they have forgotten something important. The foolish ones insist they know everything already. Wise words for a weekend hobbyist. A teacher's words, Minho corrected. Same principles, different classroom. They stopped at a viewport showing Velnar Prime's 3 moons rising over an alien horizon. Earth was somewhere out there, 40 light-years away. On that distant world, thousands of traditional craftspeople maintained their arts. Bladesmiths, potters, weavers, carpenters. Most of them had no idea they were preserving knowledge the galaxy had forgotten. What will you do now? Hyejin asked. The prize money from the challenge was substantial. The collaborative project earned more. You could retire from teaching, focus entirely on smithing. I am thinking of opening a proper school, Minho said. Not just a workshop, but a real institution. 20 forges. Facilities for students who need different atmospheres. A gallery to display techniques from Earth and other worlds. Borum can run the academic programs while I focus on teaching. The Galactic Center for Traditional Metallurgy? I was thinking Gyeongju Bladesmithing Institute, Minho said with a slight smile. But yes, something like that. Master Thane wants to establish an exchange program. Korvathi students learn traditional techniques on Earth. Human students learn quantum forging on Korvath Prime. Cultural exchange through metalwork. You will be famous, Uncle, the human who taught the galaxy to slow down. I will be a teacher with more students, Minho corrected. The fame can go to the steel. That is what matters. Not who forged it, but that it is good steel. Honest steel. Steel that does not pretend to be more than it is, but is everything it should be. Hyejin thought about those words as they returned to their quarters. Honest steel. Honest knowledge. Honest civilization. Her uncle, a simple weekend bladesmith, had somehow taught that lesson to species who had conquered faster-than-light travel. And really, what was humanity's greatest strength if not exactly that? The ability to preserve and remember, to value what came before even while reaching for what lay ahead. They had kept their traditional arts alive not because they rejected progress, but because they understood that true advancement built on foundation rather than burning it to ash. 5 years later, the Gyeongju Institute for Traditional and Advanced Metallurgy welcomed its 100th off-world student. Master Smith Minho Park, now officially recognized as a galactic keeper of traditional knowledge, still taught the basics himself. Proper hammer grip, reading forge colors, understanding what the steel needed. Forgemaster Thane served as co-director, bringing his quantum forging expertise into conversation with traditional methods. Together they had trained a generation of smiths who understood that mastery meant synthesis, not choosing one approach over another. In workshops across Earth and throughout the galaxy, the sound of hammer on anvil rang out. Old rhythms carrying new understanding. Proof that humanity's weekend hobbies might be exactly what the galaxy needed. Damascus steel, once lost and rediscovered, had taught the stars to remember their foundations. And in remembering, they had learned how to truly advance. Minho stood in his teaching forge one evening after classes had ended. His current project was a simple kitchen knife, a commission from a chef in Busan. Nothing fancy, just good steel, honestly forged, made to do its job well. As he heated the blade for final heat treatment, he thought about his grandfather. The old man would have been amazed by everything that had happened. Aliens learning in the family workshop. Traditional techniques recognized across the galaxy. the simple crafts of Earth becoming the foundation for galactic advancement. But then again, his grandfather had always said that good work speaks for itself. Whether anyone is watching or not, whether anyone recognizes it or not, good work remains good work.